Flicked this open randomly. This book changed my whole life when I flicked it open in one page a few years ago. Long story, but I did flick it open. I searched and then I found and then I flicked it open. I just thought I might flick it open again randomly. And here we go. So I'm going to read this. I just thought it was really interesting, so I'm going to read. The same thing said 3 different ways. Man is the measure of all things. Protagoras, circa 440 BC. No higher answer exists. We must construct it ourselves. Okay. Biologist and author Stephen Jay Gould, late 20th century. You're not the boss of me. The toddler, since the beginning. Interesting. Okay. So, raging against the parental machine, the toddler is a factory of antisocial behaviour. One does not have to teach a toddler to hit, steal, lie, disobey, covet, and destroy other people's property or act selfishly. Such behaviour comes naturally to a toddler. This is exactly where psychological explanations of human behaviour break down, because psychology cannot explain such things as the following. One day, the mother of a 20-month-old child who has never witnessed an act of violence, even cartoon violence, denies him a cookie before supper. The child falls to the floor and begins having a high self-esteem seizure. His screams can be translated thusly: "How dare you deny me, Lord of the universe, a cookie? Give me the cookie or suffer the full force of my wrath, wretched underling." Out of the goodness of her heart, his mother picks him up with the intent of comforting him, and with perfect aim and perfect timing, he slaps her across the face. Believe me, the slap is not an accident, no random thrash that has happened to connect with Mum's cheek, as a camera would have proven. The expression on the child's face at the moment of impact was pure 100% demonic. What is the psychological explanation for this outburst of violence directed at the very person who has shown this child the most kindness, who has sacrificed her own needs in order to meet his? What unresolved issue is the child attempting to express? Freudianism, humanism. So, yeah, we have to think about these things we focus on, because what unresolved issue is the child attempting to express? Who has modelled such vicious behaviour for him? But we see here he has had none. He has had no modelling. He has had no who has never witnessed an act of violence, even cartoon violence. Okay, so who has modelled such vicious behaviour for him? Behaviourism. And keep in mind, please, that violence is the stock in trade of the toddler. He slaps his mother, pulls the hair of other children, and if the smile on his face is an indication, he enjoys hearing them cry. Pushes his younger brother to the floor just to see him fall and hear him wail, and appears to derive great pleasure from trying to pry people's eyeballs out of their sockets. Freudians, humanists, and behaviourists are struck dumb by toddler behaviour of this sort. God, in his infinite mercy and grace, has distinguished us from animals in many ways, but one is most significant to our discussion. He has not allowed human offspring to grow to full size in 1 or 2 years. Imagine the consequence to a mother who denies her 5 foot 10 inch tall, 165-pound, 2-year-old male child a cookie for dinner. Not a pretty picture. God is good. Likewise, psychology cannot explain why, as soon as a child begins to master the power of language, he begins to lie. Most interestingly, the first lie told by every child is the first lie recorded as having been told. I am not responsible for what has happened here. I'm not responsible for what I did. First Adam said this, then Eve. Psychology has no means of explaining why a child whose parents have been as loving and caring as parents can be suddenly begins to refuse to obey even the most innocuous of their instructions and seems to take perverse delight in doing exactly the opposite of what they ask him. Psychology cannot explain the arbitrary rebellious behavior of the toddler because psychology refuses to accept that humans are by nature rebels without a cause. That is the biblical perspective, and since Freud, psychology has taken the greatest of pains to distance itself as much as possible from anything religious. After all, Freud wrote that belief in God was a delusion and religion was the refuge of the neurotic. In a sense, psychology is postmodernity's toddler, determined to deny that there is a truth and authority greater than itself. Psychology. Oh, wow, yeah. And I have experienced it, so yeah.